I'm Jeff Cornwall, and this is the Entrepreneurial Mind. Today, my guest is Lance Wascom. We'll be back to talk to him after this. Welcome, Lance.
Thank you, Jeff. Good to be here.
So you got kind of a dream job for anybody who's kind of in the music business. You kind of get to hang out around tours and meet a lot of cool musicians along the way, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So you guys,
sure.
so Tour Supply is a company, and you basically, whatever tours need, bands, when they're on tour, whatever they need, you guys figure it out for them.
That's right. In fact, I brought a prop for you.
All right.
As I was walking out the door today, I grabbed this goofy little thing here. It kind of sums up Tour
Looks like
Supply.
a marker.
Looks like a Sharpie, right?
Yeah.
Well, everybody on tour uses Sharpies, and there's a lot of Sharpie thieves out there in the world that steal people's Sharpies. So guys can hang this little clip on their lanyard. Here, you can borrow my Sharpie now. And then when you're done with it, you can't stick a Sharpie in your pocket with no cap on it, so
they get it back.
Got to get it back.
Every time.
There you go.
That's awesome.
That's basically what we do. Things like that
So how do you get into this kind of a business? I mean, this is a really kind of a cool kind of a thing, and you know, do you have to know people, or kind of how does it work?
Yeah, I worked at a music store in St. Paul, Minnesota, where I met my business partner, and he was supplying all these bands out of this little music store in St. Paul
with
all kinds of musical equipment, production supplies, whatever they needed.
Right.
And I was managing the drum department there, and we had a lot of competition in town, so I had about 3 customers a day.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time just hanging out, talking to Larry, and watching what he did, and was amazed by all these bands that he was working with.
So you were looking at working with drums and having no customers, and watching him having more customers than he could deal with, and decided that was the way to go?
Well, yeah, I just convinced him to come have coffee with me one night, and said, hey, got a little money my grandma left me. It was about $18,000, so not a lot, but enough to kind of get us going. And I said, listen, I think we can make a business out of this. Do you want to give it a shot? And somehow I conned him into doing it, and here we are, 17 years later.
So did you have some long, drawn-out kind of negotiations and partnership discussions? Or did you just kind of do a handshake and move ahead?
Handshake and a smile, and here's the idea, wrote it down on paper, and went 50-50 in the company, and off we went.
And you guys have had a good relationship there on out, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're great business partners, and I think we complement each other very well.
It's amazing how that can work out so well. Sometimes when it's spontaneous like that, a whole lot better than when you try to overthink and plan that kind of stuff. So.
True.
So you started this thing out. You didn't have much business experience.
Right.
And
26 years old.
And your partner had no business experience.
Right.
So how do you kind of figure that stuff out? Because you're dealing with inventory, you're dealing with profit margins, you're dealing with logistics, you're dealing with really tough customers sometimes to deal with.
Yeah, that was the challenge, and you know, still is a little bit the challenge today. But you know, I didn't think about that at the time. You know, I was 26, like I said, and it just seemed like a great idea, something fun to do. I always wanted to do something that I enjoyed.
Right.
And you know, I figured we would figure all that stuff out along the way, which we did.
So, what were some of the biggest uh-oh moments early on that you realized you kind of had to figure something out?
Pretty much everything you mentioned. You know, inventory management was a big thing, still is a big thing. That's one of the tougher things when you're an inventory-based company like we are, knowing what products to stock, what not to stock. You got to make sure you have things that are going to turn.
Right.
So that was one of the biggest challenges for us.
Because the breadth of the inventory must be incredible. I mean, you know, there's all the brands, and there's kind of pickiness in terms of exactly what they want, and do you kind of get the rhythm after a while of what the standard things are?
You do, and it comes back to this.
Sharpies.
Knowing your customers.
Yeah.
You know, we understand our industry. The touring industry, you know, despite what people might think, is a pretty small, tight-knit industry. So you do a good job for people, and everybody's going to know about it. You do a bad job for people, everybody's going to know about it even quicker. So service has to be the top priority.
And so your customer is the tour manager primarily, or where do you connect?
We're dealing with production managers, more so than tour managers. Tour managers are typically in charge of the band.
Right.
Production managers in charge of the show.
Right.
So we're dealing with production managers, guitar techs, sound engineers, both front of house sound engineers, which is the guy mixing the band for the crowd, monitor engineers who mix the band for the band, mix the show for the band, and everybody in between, stage managers, set carps, catering people sometimes, lighting folks, so all across the board there.
So as a guy who knew very little about business going into this, what's the one thing you wish you would have known, going into this, now looking back?
Make sure you have proper insurance.
Okay.
On everything. When people say you can't be underinsured or overinsured, they're correct.
They're right. Okay.
That's one big thing that I would have done better.
Okay. Any business skills that you wish you would have known going in?
No, maybe a little more on the financial side.
Right.
But I was always pretty good on that end of it, and it was a quick study.
I tell my students accounting is only arithmetic, so you don't have to be that good of a mathematician to figure it out. So. Yeah,
and if I would have known some of the things I know now about inventory, I would have done that a little bit differently.
Right.
Things like one of the things I think is very important is trying to make some money on the front end rather than the back end. So if you can buy in bulk things that you're going to sell, that you're not going to take a risk on something that you don't know you're going to sell or not, but you're guaranteed you're going to sell a whole lot of this product. If you can get 10% off by buying X amount up front,
huge.
Buy it.
Yeah, it's right down to the bottom line.
Get it. And if you can prepay it and get an extra 3-5%, do it.
Scariest moment dealing with a customer, biggest kind of crisis you ever had to deal with?
Biggest crisis I ever had to deal with was the flood in Nashville.
Right.
Which came on the heels of an unfortunate embezzlement thing we had going on.
Oh boy.
We had somebody embezzle a bit of money from the company.
Oh man.
On the tail end of that, we got hit with the flood, which cost us over $100,000 in inventory. We were out of.
It hit the industry hard.
Yeah.
I've had the folks from Boo TV in, and they
got.
Okay.
Yep.
They
were
killed.
crushed.
Yeah. They
Big
got
time.
killed. And
Yeah.
then all the instruments that have been warehoused down there. And
Yep. I mean, there was all kinds of stories. One that sticks out in my head was the Leonard Skinner gear that was in their locker that survived the 70s plane crash but couldn't survive the Nashville flood.
Yeah.
There's just so many stories of priceless artifacts, Hall of Fame guitars and things like that that were lost. So.
Yeah. I mean, gear you can replace, but that kind of stuff you can't.
Right. And so that was really tough to weather that storm. We got some help from the Small Business Administration in the form of a disaster recovery loan.
Very good. It's a great program.
It is. Dealing with paperwork that goes along with it was not fun.
That's not fun, but it is a good program, and especially dealing with a 1-2 punch like that. And that's the way it always seems to kind of come. It's like you think you got through one thing, and then something bigger happens, but you survived, and we're several years later, and things are going.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
There you go. Thank you for coming in, Lance. This has been great.
Thank you, Jeff.